some changes potentially going on with the structure around National Signing Day. Now, National Signing Day, we do a show here at On3 every single signing day for every single signing period. Might be adding one more of those to the mix, it sounds like. So, to kind of make sense of all this, the man that I am tied at the hip with every single National Signing Day for an hour, sometimes multiple hours at a time, Josh Newberg, National Recruiting Analyst for On3. Josh, what's up, baby? How we living?
Reporting live for duty on the hard count. Ready to go.
How we doing, man? How we doing? What do we think about this? Okay, they're talking about adding another National Signing Day to June potentially. I've seen people be vehemently against this. I've seen some people say, hey, that's great. Let the kids sign early. Where do you fall in this whole thing, Josh? Is this a good idea?
I mean, I got to just roll with the punches, but I'm optimistic. I mean, nothing's going to be perfect, so let's just get that out of the way right now. College football has never been completely fair. It's never been perfect, and this is another example of that. But I do think it kind of clears some of the chaos out of the month of December between the transfer portal, the playoffs, conference championships, the coaching carousel. There's just so much going on, and from somebody that covers recruiting year-round, I like the fact that we're taking recruiting back. When there was the sole signing day, when there was only one signing day in February, January was recruiting season. You had the weeks of visits that led up to signing day, and you had a lot of recruits making their decisions on that February signing day. There was a lot of excitement. The focus was purely on recruiting because the football season was over. And now I feel like we're getting back a little bit to that recruiting season because the month of June, I mean, just in our short time working together here at On3, the month of June and July has replaced November, December, January as the quote-unquote recruiting months on the calendar. So having signing day at the end of June, to me, I mean, maybe I would have put it in July had I been making the rules, but I like the end of June. Everybody's coming off those official visits. It feels like a good time for recruits to sign. I mean, you and I spoke to a lot of recruits at the end of May last year, and you just got the sense that these guys were dialed into, if they weren't already committed already, they were really dialed into what, 2, maybe 3 teams. I mean, hey, now you can take your official visits in the spring and the summer, and at the end of summer, you can decide. Does coaching change make a difference? Yes, of course it does. But coaching change makes the difference whether signing days in January, February, December. It doesn't really matter. So I'm eager to see, how this takes shape. If and when it does, we'll see whether this takes shape for 2024. Probably more likely 2025. But I'm excited for it for the most part.
It kind of seems like we should just make it July 5th, Josh. Everyone and their mama wants to commit on July 4th. Let's move that signing to July 5th. You make your commitment on the 4th. Bada bing, bada boom, July 5th. You put pen to paper. Kidding, of course, but genuinely, like, there's a lot of people kind of parachuting into this whole discussion around, well, we want to add another signing day. What does that do to the rest of the signing days? What we're talking about here is moving that December signing day to the week of conference championship games. Now, you talked about this with me yesterday before we got on the air here. It was like, hey, if you move that day to the conference title week, like, who does that hurt? The team's actually playing in the conference title game. I mean, is that not something that just kind of hamstrings the teams that have success? You're penalized on the recruiting side of things because you won a lot of games during the regular season. Is that fair? I mean, I know there's no perfect situation, but that feels like counterintuitive in some ways.
Take a team like a Georgia. And if they have a class of 25 recruits, they're probably going to, in June, I'm going to just, ballpark here, but I think by the end of June, they're going to have 17 to 20 to 22 commitments by then. Well, if Georgia is doing what Georgia does, then that means, yes, they're competing in the conference championship game. But they're also not having a coaching change situation. So the guys that are already committed, yeah, they're probably handicapped that week a little bit because they have a lot because they have game prep. But then again, their class is probably full because they were winning, and you don't have to worry about coach attrition. So the guys that you already signed, it's not like you're still recruiting them through the whistle there. They're signed to you. So I think that's a good position to be in if you're a team that is out and you're winning, and hey, that the wins do the recruiting for you in a sense.
Well, Josh, here's my question. When it comes to evaluating these kids, like, we don't even put our final rankings out for our respective classes until after they play their senior season. So for these coaches, like, is there not the chance that you're going to miss a late bloomer who has a great senior season and pops on the radar, like an Arian Carter of sorts? I mean, I remember him. He was a guy that I think he was committed to Memphis at one point in time and then ended up blowing up because of, I believe it was his first 4 games of his senior season, and then everyone and their mama was offering him, and he committed. So are we going to miss out on some of those players, Josh, because we shrink this eval window for teams?
I kind of think that's a player's decision. He has to understand his market, and if he doesn't have to sign in June. If Arian Carter felt like he was going to have a huge senior season, maybe he doesn't commit to Memphis or sign, in the future, sign with Memphis in the summer, and he waits and he goes into, because you can still sign in December. So you could still conceivably sign that with Memphis in June, or you could sign with Memphis in December, but in between, you might want to wait it out and see how your senior tape looks, and you might have a lot more interest. So I think that's going to be something that is definitely worked through. I think that'll be one of the more intriguing aspects of the June signing day is how these evals go. How many spots do teams reserve for those late evals? How do recruits handle it? If you're committed to a USF or you're committed to a program like a Memphis or a Tulane, maybe you don't sign in June. Maybe you wait till December if you're committed to a program like that. So with any changes, there's going to be new strategy involved, and that's kind of what we do on the On3 Recruits channel. We break it all down. We do the science. We talk recruiting, and with these new rules, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, actually, make sure you're subscribed to the On3 Recruits channel. Josh Newberg crushing it with the inside scoop. Phillip Dukes, the 5-star flex. Like, go check out the On3 Recruits channel. That's also where we do our National Signing Day show. So just making sure you're covered recruiting year-round, because it's obviously becoming even more and more of a year-round thing than it already was. Josh, who does this hurt? Because on paper, you're like, okay, more signing days, kids have more opportunities to sign. If you're a coaching staff, maybe you're able to put some hay in the barn earlier. Like, what is the negative effects here? We've talked about it a little bit. What's like the drawbacks here of going with 3 signing days and rearranging this calendar if we go as we're talking about it?
Yeah, I think there's always unintended consequences, and we saw that with the December signing day. We see that with everything because, as we said in the beginning, college football isn't fair, recruiting sure isn't fair, and there's no way to make it fair without causing issues for others. So in this case, I think the 2 glaring ones that stand out would be with recruits. What happens if there's a coaching change? How locked in are you? How full are some of these other classes? Maybe you have to stick it out because these other classes are full because of what they signed in June. So I could see that, the way that the coaching carousel moves, that could certainly impact. And then also for coaching, like what we talked about with evals. What if an offensive lineman, we talk with Charles Power all the time about how offensive linemen are one of the hardest positions to eval because they mature a little bit later in the high school cycle, meaning like their senior year. So some of these guys, I don't know, it's going to be a strategy that coaches have to work through. There's always teams that kind of come out when we saw the transfer portal. There's teams that come out and they seem to know how to take advantage of the transfer portal, and then the next year everybody catches up and somebody else has to figure out a way to do something a little bit different and find a way to take advantage of the new rules. So I think it's something we're going to see. There's definitely speed bumps involved. There's definitely things where a coaching change in December, or hey, what about the NFL coaching carousel where things tend to open up after 2 signing days now have already taken place? So yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that we have to watch for, a lot of excitement, a lot of kind of pitfalls, things that we don't see coming, but eventually, they'll adapt to it, and we'll find some teams do it better than others, just like in regular recruiting, just like the transfer portal.
And what do you always tell me? We all cut our own deals.
We do.
We all cut our own deals. All right, so this is the furthest thing from a political show, Josh, but I'm going to ask you for your vote. If you had a vote on the current thing being talked about with what we've talked about already this segment, you move that December day to conference championship weekend. I think February stays the same. You install the June window. Are you voting yes or no on that proposition?
I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes. That's how I would vote. At me on Twitter if you don't agree with me, but that's how I'm voting. I'm voting for change.
Okay, just make sure I pencil your vote. So we got 1 for yes. We'll take a poll of the rest of the college football landscape and hopefully get this thing headed to whatever college football conference.
What about
is.
your vote? That's what I care about.
I trust people like you, Josh, to be honest, because I think the pulse you have for this whole thing is a really good compass for someone like me who focuses so much on the college football side of things, and then also obviously pays attention to recruiting. But the way that you covered in the weeds, I think I'm concerned about the eval part of this for staffs. I think the more data you can get on a kid, the better it's going to serve them. And also, I think someone else tweeted this out. I forget who it was, but they were saying we're going to see kids sit out their senior year. So if we get that kind of kickback from it, which I wonder if we would in an NIL era, where like, hey, I got X amount of $1 million waiting on me at X university, and if I get hurt my senior year, that all goes away. I'd be really disappointed to see that kind of culture leak in. So if we get that result, I'd say no. But based on the fact that we have kids already making decisions as early as we are, I think signing early could be a good deal.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a couple more changes. So head coaches need to be allowed out on the road for evals. During the May eval period, head coaches aren't allowed on the road, which I don't understand. It's their program. All the pressure's on them, and their assistants are out there having to convey what they see to the head coach. I don't know why you can't just let a head coach out. But with a June signing day, I think that the head coaches could be on the road in May. They could also do in-home visits in May, because we know December and January is big for in-home visits with head coaches. That's when they're allowed out on the road for the contact period off campus. So now maybe the NCAA says, hey, head coaches can hit the road in May. You can do evals and you can do in-home visits at the same time, knock them both out, and that's your time on the road. To me, it would make a little bit more sense. I never understand why coaches are allowed to go. I mean, it makes sense that they're allowed to go into a recruit's home and sit with the family, but why are they not allowed to watch them on the football field? Like, I don't understand that. So hopefully there's a couple more changes. We're getting a little bit in the weeds on some of the details, but I think with a couple more tweaks, it could be a lot better.
Yeah, that's the other part. Like, personnel departments across the country are already working, like 12-plus hour days, and then you sprinkle in another signing day. I'm sure that just amplifies their workload. So like you said at the top of this thing, which was a perfect preface, no perfect solution. We're doing our best. We need more regulation.
And college football is not fair. It's never been fair. Let's not try to make it fair, but let's try to make it a little bit better. Make it make sense a little bit more. And I think that's what the summer signing day would do to the current climate of college football.
Nature of the beast, baby. Nature of the beast. Josh, what we got coming on the Inside Scoop over on 3 Recruits channel?
We got a big show today. We are talking with Rusty Mansell of Dogs HQ. We're talking Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live. I think we got Charles Power on this show. It's a fun season of recruiting. It never stops, and that's what we do on the On3 Recruits channel. 365 days out of the year, all recruiting, all the time.
Can't stop, won't stop. Again, on the Recruits channel. Get locked in over there. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the Inside Scoop or the 5-star flex recruiting coverage year-round, as Josh just mentioned. Josh, you're the man, brother. I appreciate you jumping in here and talking some ball with us, making sense of this whole National Signing Day calendar madness.
I appreciate you, brother.
That's the man. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.